Opa. Alright. I already have the title for this episode. And it's gonna be If I Had 6 Hours to Cut Down a Tree. Now, it's a reference to a quote that's been, as far as I know, attributed to Abraham Lincoln. Apparently he said, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, I would spend the first 5 hours sharpening my axe, or something like that, sharpening my tool. And the meaning of this, obviously, is that preparation is crucial. It's very important. Now, that's all I prepared for this episode, is the title. So I guess I'm going to have to ramble on this idea of preparation. It's an image. I don't know if you could call it a meme, an image that was circulating the internet on Facebook, I don't know, a few years ago, that I remember seeing, where you have two images. On the first image, you have this field with a bunch of people pushing cubes, almost their own size, pushing them as if it's a race, all pushing the cubes. And there's one guy at the back who's carving into it, right? We don't know why he's carving into it. And then in the second image, the guy at the back, everyone has moved forward, a little bit, but he's already catching up with them, and he's pushing a sphere along because he cut down his cube to the shape of a sphere because it's easier to roll. This idea, don't work hard, work smart. Now you need to work hard, but it's like the smarter you work, the less hard you have to work. Whereas if you're not working smart, you might find yourself working really hard to compensate for the fact that you didn't prepare and you're not working intelligently. So normally I have 3 days off. Normally Sunday is my first day off. I finish on Saturday at 5, so I'm home quite early still. Normally what I try to force myself to do is, partly on Saturday evening after work, and especially on Sunday, I tell myself I don't have to be productive on Sunday. I just have to do all the cleaning that's required. Clean my room, make it as clean and easy to navigate as possible. Have everything ready. I draw every day, so have whatever the tools I need, paper, blah blah blah. Have everything ready, food for the weekend, etc. on Sunday, and then on Monday and Tuesday is where I work. That's an idea I've had. I haven't really followed through. Well, I haven't followed through this weekend, but in the previous weekends, that's what I would do. And that's just something that I try to think about. It's funny how a quote like this, if I had 6 hours to cut down a tree, right, has a very obvious meaning on the importance of preparation, right? That's what it means. Basically, you could shorten it to be prepared, or there's another one, fail to plan, plan to fail. But the Abraham Lincoln quote highlights something more specific than the fail to plan, plan to fail quote, right? The fail to plan, plan to fail quote goes straight to the essence of the idea. But with the 6 hour, I don't even know, maybe I'm paraphrasing, maybe he didn't say it like that, but with the 6 hours to cut down a tree idea, if you spend 5 hours out of 6, you're spending, 5/6, you're spending, I don't know, what was that, like 80 something percent? More than 80% of your time preparing. And we all hear this. I don't know, I watch MMA, I love watching MMA, watching fights, and fighters talk a lot about how we only see them on the day they perform. And some people have, anyone who's not a professional athlete has no idea what work goes behind that, right? And so, where was I going with this? Yeah, and so the tip of the iceberg, essentially, the 1 hour you're spending cutting down the tree is impossible without the 80% behind it spent preparing. So, trying to think about the value of preparation as opposed to wanting to rush into, a finished product or into creating. And so I'm thinking about that in terms of my own kind of life trajectory, so to speak. This podcast is just me quoting other people and giving anecdotes that I've been told in the past, isn't it? Another one I was told was when, on my last day at school, secondary school, we had this assembly where the head of the school gave us this little speech. And he talked about bamboos. Once again, I'm just going to paraphrase. I don't remember the whole thing exactly. But he gave us this speech about how a bamboo, for something like a year, you water it, you do whatever you do to a plant to make sure it grows, and it doesn't come out of the ground yet. You're watering it, you're feeding it, blah blah blah, but you can't see the progress. And then one day, after a year or so, it starts growing really fast. That was his story. Don't know how accurate it is. I don't know the numbers, etc., and the facts, but I never bothered to check. But the meaning of it, the essence, or what you can learn from it, is this idea that growing in obscurity, is, well, what he was saying for us is that they have been helping us grow, and we haven't really seen the results yet. And once we leave school, we're gonna realize how prepared we've been for life outside of school. Is that true? I don't know. It was definitely a shock in some ways. Well, not that big actually, but this idea of working in obscurity, and growing day after day, repeating the same things, growing, without seeing not necessarily without seeing results, but without seeing big results like anyone with ambition would like to see. Seeing small results, And anyways, when you're growing, you're not realizing you're growing, right? When I see my brother, it will have been a year next time I see him, and it's going to seem like he's growing exponentially, which he has actually. He's growing really fast. He's 12, 13. I don't know, he shouldn't be that tall. But whereas me growing up, I wouldn't be noticing me growing up, right? People would notice me when I would see them, once or twice a year. So that's, you don't notice it as much when it's you who's growing. Anyways, in the world we live in today, it's easier than ever to get lucky and go viral, become very famous out of nowhere. Doesn't mean you're not working for it, but you can get lucky to an exponential level, to the point where you get millions of views on YouTube, on Instagram, I don't know, and you're semi-famous, or you get your 15 minutes of fame. And so a lot of people focus on the progress that's visible. Yesterday I was watching a video by Paul E.T. on YouTube where he talks about, he does a Q&A, and he talks about his first video that went viral, and how before that he had, I think he was saying like 100 followers, and he was getting 100 views, and then out of nowhere he's getting thousands of new followers and views, etc. And it's a form of luck, but he had been making content, and perfecting his craft for a really long time. And what I'm getting at is, for a long time I thought to myself, I want to be one of those people who get lucky and who are really young and who become really successful and all this. And I'm realizing that my trajectory through life and my career, just my life in general, that's not the way it seemed. I don't know if I would say I have accepted. Maybe I would. I have accepted that that's not the way it's going to play out. And it doesn't matter, whether something happens tomorrow or, in 5 years, it doesn't matter. What matters is to, whilst being this little plant underground, invisible, I still have to work and grow as much as possible. Another quote, I think it's Bruce Lee, who says, luck is when opportunity meets preparation, right? And so from that standpoint, anyone who's gotten lucky, in the past 10, 15 years with Bitcoin, with going viral on social media, things of that nature, if they did get lucky, then perhaps you can attribute that to opportunity, but also preparation to some regard. And I think that's what I have to say on this subject for now. I have my poem. I don't know when the last time I recited a poem was on this. And it's comically short, this poem. but whatever. I have it, so I'll recite it. Now the question is, what is the title? I have no clue. Really? Wow, I was gonna guess something totally different using a line from the poem, but it has nothing to do with the actual title. So, by Charles Baudelaire once again. This one is L'Avertisseur. Tout homme digne de ce nom a dans le cœur un serpent jaune, installé comme sur un trône, qui s'il dit je veux, répond non. Plonge tes yeux dans les yeux fixes, des satyresses ou des nixes, la dandy, pense à ton devoir. Fais des enfants, plante des arbres, polis des vers, sculpte des marbres, la dandy, vivras-tu ce soir? Quoi qu'il ébauche ou qu'il espère, l'homme ne vit pas un moment sans subir l'avertissement de l'insupportable vipère. Dunzo. Well, now I have to fill up, I don't know, the rest of the podcast or something. So, in this quest for structure in my life, for structure and consistent growth, right? That's basically it. It's a quest for structure and consistent growth that I'm in. So, in this thing that I just mentioned, I've mentioned, I think in the past podcast, but I have now these kind of, pillars, let's say, 5 pillars, things that I have to do every day, which are work out, write, draw, read, and filmmaking. Yes, right. I have to do these every day. Actually, I put filmmaking as not necessarily an everyday thing, but I suppose it should be. So write, draw, read, work out, and do some filmmaking. 20 minutes each, minimum. And then obviously sometimes I'll do more. Like for example, today I'm editing a music video, so I'm almost done and I'll have to finish it, so I've done more. That being said, so it's about doing these every day. 20 minutes, so that's 100 minutes, an hour 40. It's not a lot. But for some reason, I keep trying to find distractions instead of doing this. Well, the things I'm supposed to be doing. But anyways, so I mean, working out is just for general health. Reading is because if you want to be a writer, you have to be a reader. Writing is because, well, I want to be a writer, a filmmaker, a screenwriter and director. And I'm writing a film. Don't know what the fuck. Why does my arm hurt when I'm literally doing nothing with it? Writing. I'm writing a film. So these practices coincide with projects for the most part, except working out and reading. Well, no, reading does. Drawing. I'm working on a graphic novel. At the moment, it's called The Valley. And the reading I'm doing is connected to that, and I'm also writing it at the moment. The drawing is me trying to create concept for characters at the moment. And filmmaking, I'm working on the music video. So I'm almost done on that one. I can't work on the animated one. We lost the pen for the iPad, which sucks real bad. Real bad. Anyways. But so, we'll start with drawing. Drawing. I want to make this graphic novel. I want to call it, well, at the moment, the working title is The Valley. And it's going to follow a character as he walks along a valley. It's a fantasy, western, horror, samurai, science fiction film. Well, film, story. The aesthetic. So the idea is that it's set in this infinite valley. And which, I mean, how do you describe that? well, it's an infinite valley. It's at times it's wider, at times it's narrower. At times it's wider, at times it's narrower. And suppose you can always see the end of the valley. Now, when the story starts, the end is just a line, like the horizon, just vertical, right? And then as the story progresses, the line seems to get wider. But the part of the horror of the story and the psychological horror is that at times it seems like the characters are moving towards it, but it's not getting narrower. Actually, it's not getting wider, the horizon, the vertical horizon. So they keep moving, and naturally people despair. And everyone in this valley has accepted that it has no end. Maybe it's I don't know, it's an Ouroboros or an infinite loop. You keep coming back to where you started, but no one's ever, gone all the way around it. So there's this belief that you can get to the end, and this valley is atrocious to live in. It's horrible. Anything you can think of, I'll put it in there. People are horrible, stupid, as in, uneducated and mean. The world they live in is horrible, therefore they're horrible. It's just an altogether unpleasant place. And so some people, right, you think that if that's the case, most people would think, well, we got to kind of get together to kind of fight whatever's in the way and get to the end to escape. Or you'd think the opposite, right? You'd be more realistic. Anyway, the world we do live in this world, the valley, in this story, the valley, people have very much accepted that their life sucks, it's horrible, and they're going to stay where they are. In fact, they're even going to try to stop people from moving towards the horizon because they believe that doing so will anger supernatural forces. Maybe they call them gods, maybe they don't. I just made that up now. That's an interesting idea. I like that. I was trying to, I knew that there would be obstacles in getting to the end, and that I wanted most people to be, to be not aggressive, to be against, to be gonna have to use the good old internet. To be, there's a perfect word. Anytime I'm looking for a word and I end up finding it, it's disappointing. To be, it was almost there. I almost had it. To be, I wanted people to be, there's a word I'm looking for. In opposition? Opposed to. Is that the word I was looking for? None of these words are as sexy as what I thought I had. But the internet is smarter than me, so I guess that's the word I was looking for. I wanted all people to be in opposition to our character's quest. Now, as I just found a solution to this idea, people think that it will anger the gods if we keep moving forward. I just realized, if we see the end of the valley one way, what's on the other side? I suppose it's going to be total darkness. Yeah. Wherever we start in the story, we know, somehow, we get told that there's one way forward and one way backwards. But why would they go? Well, they would go forward because I suppose it would be an end then. That's the only way. Because if the only reason they don't go towards the opposite side is, I don't know, because it's dark, because it seems scary, then that would be a kind of suggestion that perhaps that's the way, if it's harder to get. Why are they moving forward? Maybe they don't know. Maybe the character is born and he is told by whomever, people who raise him, that this way is the way forward towards the exit. And so he's been walking this way his whole life, and that's where he's going. But what the fuck is behind him? I guess I could solve this easily by having, somehow, at some point in the story, we get confirmation that there's some kind of, what do you call it? Cul-de-sac. Dead end. There's some kind of dead end on the other side. Or perhaps, there's some kind of dead end, and there's actually like mines. There's always mines somewhere. If you fuck up, we'll put you on the wall or in the mines. That's, I don't know, I watched The Silo recently. There's Game of Thrones. I think Lord of the Rings. No, that's not a threat. I think not Lord of the Rings. Yeah, Lord of the Rings. I think that's a threat somewhere. We'll take it, we'll put you in the mines. Where else? What's that one? The Handmaid's Tale. They'll put you in the mines as well. Was it the mines or something like that? The mines or the wall? I don't want to have mines. Well, it's not really, is it mines? I guess I visualize it as this immense wall that is blocking one way of the valley, and you just have people digging day and night, digging through. Maybe you have people who believe that that's the way, through the darkness, in this kind of cave where it's all dark, and they're digging in the darkness with little torches, and they believe that digging through this darkness will get them out. And then there are the people who are going towards the light. Now, one problem is they can't really meet, right? If they are opposed forces, would that make the people going towards the dark the enemies of the people who are going towards the light? I guess they could just leave each other alone, but that's not good for a story. There needs to be fighting and drama, conflict. Maybe the guys at the back are sending people to attack the guys who are going towards the light for some reason. Or maybe as the guys are moving towards the light, they encounter people who believe that going towards the light will anger those above, and so they should turn back and go to the mines. We will not call them the mines nor the wall. Actually, we could have fun and just make it both, right? They're digging through the wall that is blocking their way, and this area is called the mines. The wall mines, the mine walls. What is it? Are they dwarves? Are they criminals dressed in all black? Are they both dwarves dressed in all black? Women who can't get pregnant, who are dwarves and who are dressed in all black? What else? Anyways, the valley. And so as I mentioned, horror, western, samurai, sci-fi, fantasy. So obviously this world is, complete fantasy. That's the world we live in. I imagine fish-like creatures swimming in the sky. That's something I have to do. I love this idea. Well, it's been done before, but whatever, I'll do it my way. So this huge valley towards the light, and then you have these fish-like creatures in the sky, and these characters moving through the valley towards this tower of light that seems to be moving back as they're moving forward. And the idea, which is strange, is that this line, this kind of universe that they're in, this line intersects with other worlds, right? You following me? It intersects with other worlds, and so you have asters in the sky, like this huge kind of thing that looks like a sun, right? But it doesn't, how do you say this? It looks like it's going through the walls of the valley. So the idea is that it's a universe that's intersecting with the valley, right? I don't know if I'll keep this idea. It sounds, what's the word, contrived and complicated and unnecessary. But I just like this idea of double exposures, basically, right? In films, you can do a double exposure when you fade from one shot to another. I always think about Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood, which is one of my favorite films. And nowadays, they don't do that as much, but fading from one shot to another, so at some point you have a double exposure in an image. Or just double exposures in photos, right? That's something people can do. And it's usually in mistakes. It's usually the mistake, the ones that are done on mistake in terms of photos that are, somehow they hit you, there's something about them. Done on purpose, I've never seen an image, a double exposure done on purpose that I thought I liked. but the ones made by mistake are interesting. Anyways, this idea of this, well, I guess it's mostly the language of photography, because even in films, a double exposure is usually fading from one shot to another, so it's temporary, and it's always moving from one to another. So there is only a fraction of a second where you're actually seeing both images overlapping. So bringing this language and this aesthetic to that being actually an aesthetic of the world of the valley, the world it's set in. And so it is hard to explain, but imagine just, you have the valley, I don't know, characters moving, you have a wide shot, as wide as you can go when there are walls on both sides, you have the Tower of Light at the end, and then you have a sun right there, really big, and it looks like it's in the valley, but obviously it's not, right? Because it will just burn everything. So you can't touch it. It's like a mirage, right, of a sun, and so you don't get the heat of it because it's not really there, but you do get the visual, and it's because it's another world that's intersecting here with the valley. And yeah, and the idea that there would be other things at times appearing before the characters from other worlds intersecting, with our world, and perhaps a person from another world interacting at some point with our hero in the valley. The valley doesn't sound. I actually have a book called La Vallée in French, which is the valley, and I don't know where I bought it actually. Anyways, I thought the title was shit. La Vallée. It's not really interesting, and in English, it sounds worse to me. The valley. Well, the valley is what is in the Silicon Valley. That's what I think about. So it won't be called the valley for long. And so we have our protagonist, and the way I want the story to start is, well, setting the tone with violence. I want this. Well, how do I say this without sounding like a complete psycho? But I do want this world to be very violent. Why? Well, the more obstacles and the more difficulty a character encounters, to get to their goal, the more you feel sympathy for them. Usually, you can fuck up, right, and that not work. But usually there's a ratio, and you start with your character suffering, and that's how you immediately they get sympathy from the audience. And there are specific works that have been made by other people that I'm inspired by, and specific books that I've read. I don't think I have a specific. I keep saying specific. A specific reason for why I want the world that my character inhabits to be so violent. But having read other books and watched films, etc., there's a specific book that comes to my mind where it was almost like a transcendental experience reading it. It got to a point where I was so absorbed in the story, and it took a turn, and I was so kind of confused at the same time. I knew what was happening, and I was just in the story. It was beautiful. And obviously the person who wrote it is a master at his craft. He's a really good writer. But I feel like the repetition and the way he drew me into this world was by the sheer violence of it. I started to accept the idea that I was, the reality of it. It felt more tangible, right? And it also felt like I could accept more readily any kind of change that happened in that world. It doesn't make any sense what I'm saying. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like its own world, and at the same time it felt real. And to me, it's very dystopic, I suppose, because of how horrible it is. And I'm kind of taking it a step further, but by setting it in a world that doesn't exist, where I can even push the envelope further. Wow, that was painful. Where was I going? So yeah, it's going to be a very violent world. I said that to set up the opening. So the way the story opens at the moment is we have our protagonist, and his brother has just been killed. It's funny, as a kid, I used to not, in the holidays and on the weekend, I would stay in bed really long, and everyone thought, it's because I'm a teenager. Well, I did wake up later, right, than I do now, and then I should have. Well, I mean, teenagers are supposed to sleep a lot. But I would spend 2-3 hours in bed, not sleeping, just watching a movie in my head. Yeah, I've done that all my life. Right? It's about time I actually try to put it on paper somehow or share it. Anyways, the story starts and we have our character, and he's actually the visual I have is that you have a sea. The sea is falling from one of the walls of the valley, and then it turns, and then you have the waves crashing on the sand, right? Which physically is impossible and doesn't make sense, but we are in this fancy world. So you have a wall of sea. It's not like a cascade. Fucking hate when I can't find words. Cascade, what the fuck? Oh my god. Oosa. A waterfall, you dummy. Alright. Anyways. It wouldn't be like a waterfall, right? It's just like the actual sea, but you're looking at it from above. That's what it looks like. So you have the sea falling and swooping around the bottom of the valley, and then the waves crashing on the sand. And you have our character here in a tree, looking straight into the sea. And he wakes up and he starts digging. He digs for... I have another story that starts with a character digging. Anyways. He starts digging, and when it's a fantasy world once again, so he digs really deep. And finally, he reveals, a body in the ground. I also don't think there'll be much dialogue in the story. I find that in graphic novels, dialogue just gets in the way for the most part. Like, less is more. He reveals this body in the ground. He takes a break. And bounty hunters, right? There has to be bounty hunters because they're so cool. Bounty hunters appear. Now, obviously, it's, as I said, it's a samurai Western world, right? Which has been done many times before, but what can I say? I love it. So a character has a sword, or, a weapon of that kind, and the enemies probably have guns. And they're here for the same body as him. They were waiting for him to dig it out. No, I was thinking something, but I'm not going to say it. They were waiting for him. They want the body. Now, it is revealed through their conversation that the person the protagonist, who doesn't have a name yet, dug out, or an appearance, is wanted for something. And he's worth a lot of money. Proof of his death is worth a lot of money. And I've decided that in this world, the way they submit proof to, whoever is going to give them money for his death, or maybe that specific man, is they bring his head, right? Which, I don't know, I suppose it's something that has been a reality in the Wild West at some point, perhaps. How would you prove you killed someone? That's definitely the easiest way at that time. They want the body, and they want the head, specifically. And he doesn't want to give it to them. Don't know when I'm going to reveal it, but it's his brother. Now, why is he here? Does he also want the money? Or is it something else? Why was his brother buried when, his head is worth a lot of money? The solution I have at the moment, is that the brother, messed up with like some kind of tribe of people who are not connected with the more, I don't know, they live in their own community. He fucked with them, and they killed him and buried him very deep in a kind of religious type of way. They saw him as a demon, so they had no idea that his head was worth anything, and probably they didn't care. But the people who are here, the bounty hunters, they do. So our protagonist fights them. My throat. Fights them, kills them probably, and everything is good. Then he wraps his brother's head. I had this very striking visual in my head of how to do it, but it doesn't make sense. That is that he has this huge bandage and he wraps it around his brother's head, completely covering it. And then, he takes the end and he puts it above the tree and around, like when you hang someone, and then he pulls the brother out, right? And then he leaves him there to kind of hang, and then he cuts his head off. And so the body falls back into the tomb, and the head, it's very morbid and dark. I know. My mother always used to say, "Oh, you have all these dark and violent ideas for stories. Why?" And obviously, she would talk about how is it because we fed you too much violence as a kid? You watched Bruce Lee movies when you were like 10 and things of that nature. And I thought maybe it had something to do, but I guess it's just who I am. I'm realizing that now. It's just who I am. And I'm not the only one. Anyways, that was to me a very striking visual. Just the head hanging on the tree. But it makes no sense, right? Because, well, it wouldn't make sense if it was easier to just behead him right then and there, at the bottom of the tomb, and then bring his head up. That would be easier. I have to find an excuse for that very striking and shocking image that I want. Anyways, that happens, and then it takes him a really long time for some reason to get to the place where he can give the head. That doesn't work. I think maybe he fights those bounty hunters, and I don't think it would be right if he was here. I want my protagonist to be very much an anti-hero and almost a bad guy. That would be a very good way to set up the fact that he's quite a bad guy if he's ready to do that to the corpse of his brother for money. Now you imagine it's a horrible word, and getting a lot of money, his brother's dead already, so getting a lot of money from that would make his life a whole lot easier. But it seems very crass, doing that to your own brother. So initially the idea was that he was just here to dig out his brother because he didn't feel like he should have been buried, in his place. But let's move on. I think I'm being a bit too candid right now about my ideas. Anyways, that's the valley. The other one, so that's drawing. Well, in writing, there's also the valley. But in writing, it's mostly something that doesn't have a name yet. Maybe, I think Silex is a cool name. I'm thinking of maybe Silex. And on this one, I want to refocus. Well, it's a film, right? I need to make a film before I'm 25. I need to. So I'm working on it currently. And I'm making it as easier to create as possible. I have to make a film by the time I'm 25, period. So I need to get as many obstacles as possible out of my way. So I'm trying to make the film the most affordable, easy to shoot possible. And it's going to focus on the creative process. I suppose it's a kind of, well, that would be the most horrible way to describe it. A video essay on creativity. It's not that, it's a film. But it's on creativity and the creative process. And on being a struggling artist, as in struggling to make art, not even like struggling to succeed financially, just struggling to make anything. Well, it's not going to be easy to make, but it's the easiest path to victory I could think of at the moment. I'm halfway through the outline, and I'll start shooting as soon as possible. So that's what I'm writing. I'm going to keep it vague because I don't really want to talk about it too much. And then in terms of filmmaking, music video, that's it. Music video, that's almost done. I need to send it today. Oh, this was very exciting. Oh. I have nothing left to say. Thank you. Oh, I could talk about something I put on my YouTube recently. What will I say about it? But I feel like I do have to say something for some reason. I shared the first, I think, 17 minutes of Floating Weeds, which is a film that's already on YouTube in its entirety. But I turned it into a vertical film. I'm obsessed with vertical cinema. I think, well, yeah, that's something I'd like to focus on when I have more resources. Creating quality vertical content. And I realized that I could turn a lot of, because of his style, Yasujiro Ozu. Because of Yasujiro Ozu's style, it's possible now with modern technology that's easily accessible to change the aspect ratio of his films to vertical. And I don't know, that's very rare in filmmakers. I can't think of any other people that I would have been able to do that with. Obviously, it's not perfect, but it's almost impossible to explain, why I did it and what it is. Like, I put it on my Instagram stories for a while, and I was wondering, if anyone will look at it and think anything really. Will they see, how, I don't know if the word is scary, but how at least intriguing and unusual that thing is, the finished product that I shared on YouTube, on YouTube, Floating Weeds. How strange it is. It's seamless. Now the quality is not very high. Obviously, if you look closely, it's not seamless at all. But the point is, it's supposed to be seen on your phone, right? That's the point of vertical cinema. And on your phone, obviously, you won't look as closely at the image as you would on a larger device, especially on a cinema screen. I was actually thinking of shooting the film that I'm trying to work on vertically. And then I went to see Oppenheimer recently, and I thought, why would I spend any time and energy into making something that's going to be seen on a phone? Maybe later in the future for more, I believe it's for short content that it would make sense. But a film, just the prospect, the idea of maybe one day having my work, on this huge screen and being able to experience it in that way is so amazing, right? That, very unlikely that this film will be. But that's what I'm working towards anyways. So thank you, Oppenheimer, for opening my eyes once again. And that's the worst example because it's Christopher Nolan. It's as epic as it gets. Even though it's not epic in the way Interstellar is. I mean, it's all shot on IMAX, it's enormous, it's epic, period. And I'm going for something much more low-key. Well, that being said, I don't know where the fuck I was going with what I mentioned. I wanted to shoot vertically. Oh yeah, the Floating Weeds. So yeah, I made it and I don't know what to think of it personally. I don't know really what I don't know. I was intrigued. I mean, I do know some things. It's given me a lot of ideas on how a vertical film, as in a short vertical film, and the aesthetic that I could use and what works and what doesn't. But yeah, I think that was an interesting exercise. I saw a video recently, I don't know by whom on YouTube, mentioning how Soderbergh, what's his name? Steven Soderbergh? I'm a terrible cinephile. Soderbergh has on his website shares things like that, where he re-edits films. The guy in the video was mentioning putting Indiana Jones, whatever, in black and white and shortening it and taking the audio out and putting a soundtrack from another film on top of it. That's a very interesting exercise to do. I've thought about doing things like that in the past, but I never followed through because it would take so long. Yeah. I guess my ideas were more complicated than that specific idea. But yeah, it's interesting. I need to do more of that, messing with existing films. So yeah, I think that's all. That is all. If I had in my notice says if I had 6 days to cut down a tree. Which one is it? 6 days, 6 hours? I don't know. Which one is more realistic? Well, it depends on the size of the tree. All right, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Whew. We were recording.